so much, everybody, for joining us today for Uplifting Trans Communities of Color during Transgender Awareness Week. My name is Diego Miguel Sanchez. I'm the Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Partnerships for PFLAG National, and my pronouns are he and him and elle. I'll be your moderator today, and our wonderfully esteemed panelists are Ariana Lind, who is the founder and CEO of Ariana Center, her pronouns her, and Carter Brown, the Executive Director of Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. His pronouns are he and him. Ariana, give us a little background on you, if you would, and then Carter, follow her.
Sure. Diego, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you to the producer. My name is Ariana Lind. I am a transgender woman. Also, I am a CEO of Ariana Center, what is a trans-led organization located and based in South Florida. And the mission of Ariana Center is engage, empower, and lift up the trans community in South Florida. Because we work in Puerto Rico also, we place a special emphasis in the most marginalized community, including trans Latinx people, undocumented immigrants, people living with HIV, and those who have experience of incarceration.
Carter.
Yes, the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition was founded in 2011 as the first national Black trans-led nonprofit organization. We're focused on bringing social justice to the Black trans community, and we do this through our empowerment programs that are focused on health, housing, and employment for, again, the Black trans community. However, our services are available to everyone. My own identity as a Black transgender man is what compelled me to found this organization because of my own experiences with discrimination in employment, being fired from several jobs once I was outed as being trans, housing, and then also being denied health care within our healthcare systems. And we're also very actively involved in public policy initiatives that affect the trans community as well as community education. And because it's a matter of fact that Black trans people face greater socioeconomic disparities such as poverty, unemployment, and homelessness, all of our are primarily and simply because of the intersection of these identities of race and gender for our communities. The mission of BTAC is simply to improve the Black transhuman experience by overcoming violence and injustice in the world through the power, value, and love of all people. And we believe that we're all one and that the true changes happens from the efforts of many. And so that's why we work to cultivate strong relationships with a wide network of partners and allies and community-based organizations that are aligned with our mission. So again, just being here and having this opportunity to uplift the voices of Black trans people is a part of our advocacy, and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to begin with Ariana and ask both of you this. I know it's hard to pick just one, but what most powerful hurdle did you encounter personally or professionally? And how did you surmount it? Frame whether you believe that hurdle was exacerbated because you're a person of color and or a trans person of color, and say whether geography, the zip code where you were located, played into this scenario. Ariana.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, actually, when I start my advocacy and my activism and the LGBT and specific for transgender, I meet one special girl when the name was Monica Roberts. And she was mentoring me in advocacy and showed me the passion of the whole trans people around the world had to make change for good things, because we don't ask for nothing what other people don't have. We just want to for the same opportunities like the other people have in this society. We live in one country what is when it's supposed to, if you working hard and you believe and be in the law, you can have a quality of life. But sadly, for many people, especially for Black, trans Latinas, trans Latinx people, that dreams is so difficult to be fulfilled. That's why it's so important to advocate with passion about us and also give this space the responsibility and seriously, because visibility is so important for our community.
Carter.
Very well said, Ariana. I would say the most powerful hurdle for me was being outed at a job and fired because of it. Although it had happened a few times prior to the incident that I'm speaking of, that last incident was most impactful because that's where I created a change for myself. And subsequently, I've created a change within the entire trans movement. When I was fired from that job, not only was it hurtful and a setback for me personally, but as a professional, it crippled me in questioning my value overall. I felt that no matter how hard I worked or, how what all steps I took to be successful, at the end of the day, it all boiled down to if people would accept me being trans or not. Because I'd worked so hard at that particular company and reached what I felt was my level of success, where I was able to comfortably provide for my family. I had great relationships and enjoyed the work environment that I was in. But this was all under the pretense that no one knew that I was transgender. And as soon as I was outed as such, it turned my world literally upside down. But again, I say that was a pivotal moment, both in not only defining for me who I was, but also what my purpose is within this vessel of being a transgender person. That is to help uplift the voices of those who are most disenfranchised and most discriminated against, which is Black and brown trans people.
And it's so difficult, right? It's so
Mm-hmm.
when we growing now and we was a child, we hear our parents say, "You're going to be a professional. You're going to be very nice. You're going to have a nice life and everything." And that is so terrible. And I fight my entire life to change that when I
Mm-hmm.
when I started my transition, and
Right.
now I can show and I can prove my talents as a CEO, as a running one organization, translate organization. But in my past, I have a lot of bad experience for people, simple for people they believe we are
Mm-hmm.
we are not enough for that.
Right.
We are not serious for that, and we are not
Right.
talent. And that's why we have to reverse and prove. And that's why we are so proud,
Mm-hmm.
and I am so proud to my transgender community, because we have visibility and we have a lot of such power talent for the trans community.
You're
Thank you
absolutely
so
right.
much. Yes, now, you mentioned families, Ariana, and growing up. At PFLAG, we have a tremendous number of families joining us with trans or non-binary children. And I know they'd want to hear from both of you about this. What is your assessment of the plight as well as the prowess of trans people of color in our community? And please include youth in your thoughts and what special barriers or buoys we hold.
Well, I definitely feel that the plight of the trans community, especially those of color, is the obvious that the systemic racism that we deal with because of our ethnic identities, as well as gender or non-gender identities. Um, that makes us a target for discrimination and definitely for violence, unfortunately. But I would say that our prowess is that, that makes us more resilient and strengthens us as a community of people, to Ariana's point that she was stating a moment ago. When you turn those doubts and those no's into, yeses and oh hell no, not today's, and really unify to make progress. I mean, that's the history of the trans movement is rebelling against being told what we cannot do. And that is the prowess, I would say, definitely that I've seen since I've been connected to the Black trans community. I mean, each year, as we're in this week of this week of trans awareness, it's also the week of TDOR. And so, for all of us here, Diego and Ariana, this can be a very heavy week for us, as we know, as we remember those who are no longer in the fight. And we also gain strength from this time to continue to fight until those numbers do not continue to climb. And so, that is our prowess. We integrate ourselves into every movement for justice. With Black Lives Matter, we now have Black Trans Lives Matter. When the gay movement is wanting to fight for equality and this and that, the trans people make sure that our voices are heard as well. And so that is our prowess to, not only speak for ourselves, but we speak for everyone and we unify for everyone. I'm Black first. So, I'm fighting for justice, racial justice, period. Not just because just because I'm Black, but or in spite of being trans. To say that trans is one of our identities and it overlaps the several identities that we have. Again, to Ariana's point, as professionals, as family members, we have several identities, and just in being trans has given us the convictions to be such strong advocates so that when we do fight for equality of all of our identities, that is where change really happens. And once we liberate the trans community, pretty much everybody's liberated.
Ariana.
Yeah, and I think, the resilience of the transgender community is so important, and the leadership of the people with trans experience is so amazing. And at this point, we are breaking a lot of barriers, and we are, like Carter say, we are anywhere you find transgender individual showing the talent, showing the professionalism, or showing the activism. But transgender community was behind for many years. We never considered in any of the of the administrations, uh, as a community, as a group. And I think right now in this time, the new administration in this country have a lot of opportunity to engage grassroots agencies, and also uh, give the back, give back to the transgender community, because they're older. And I think it's very good for and we, the transgender people, demonstrate the power in these elections also.
Thank you so much. Carter, let's begin with you. We at PFLAG are kind of built for a system of volunteerism. We are around the country. We're nearly 50 years old. We live on a basis of support, education, and advocacy. But we have so many strong younger organizations, including your own, and people like yourself. How do we engage people like ourselves, trans and non binary people of color, and people different than us who are potential allies who are not trans and non binary people of color? How do we engage them to be involved in our work?
That's a great question, Diego, and that's the $1 million question, right? Once people know what the problem is, they want to help. And so I think it's really important for us to simply continue doing what we're doing, like what we're doing here today. We're talking about it, and we're creating conversations, and we're creating that education around transgender identity. Our visibility is providing that reflection that trans youth needs to see so that they don't feel lonely anymore. And so just continuing to live our lives out loud, I feel, is more than enough. And I'll also say that in doing that, it becomes a lot of times, and just nothing that gets any easier when you're, fully transparent. It's a lot of emotional labor in us time and time again, getting out here and reliving our trauma, um, and the hard times that we've had in transition and the rejection that we felt in those lonely days. All, we're being this transparent all for the intentions of the embetterment of someone else. But, this is still our lives. Like right now, we're part of a production, but this is our lives that we're living. And so it is very strenuous to pretty much live naked in a lot of ways for us. But it's a sacrifice that we make again for the embetterment of other people. And I think that as we continue to, simply be vocal and be visible, that we do have to sort of dissect the layers of our identities, because although we're, the transgender identity is the common denominator, we're all so different. And, once we start talking about, or once we expose and humanize those several layers to us as individuals, I think that's where people start to relate. So, for example, Diego, you can't relate to me as a Black man, but if I start talking about my trans identity, and if I talk about the fact that I'm someone's son or I'm someone's brother, or the work or beliefs that I have about politics or family and things that you can relate to, then maybe I can sort of work my way in to gain your empathy and understanding um, of me as a human, to make it relevant. And I think that's what's been really successful for the trans movement overall, is that as we, do show those vulnerabilities and authenticity of ourselves in layers, then people can relate to that and say, well, hey, maybe that's not so strange or so weird, or even more so say, hey, that person reminds me of my child, and I want to give because I believe that all children should have, right of choice, and the same access to things in their schools. I do believe, this person reminds me of my family members, so I too can relate that they should have equal opportunities to work hard in their job and be graded on their skill set versus, their personal identities, etc. To shorten my answer, I think that we should just continue doing what we're doing. The movement is ablaze right now, and I'm just very proud to have a part in the movement and all that's been done and being done.
Ariana.
Diego, well, I think what we have to realize is the importance of the allies. We cannot go
Mhm.
forward if we don't have a true allies. An ally who they are really want to involve and help us, not the help they think we need it, because we need it. We ask to the community, participate with the community. That's what is so important. The the visibility of the transgender community and their allies. The most important also is allies who they have, who they want to invest in the transgender community,
Mhm.
in business, in life, professional things, and different things. This kind of space and conversations, not just give us a visibility, but also, like Carter said, we are trying to educate with our own experience, with the whole experience and work what we have in the community. So it's so important the work with the allies, and I can I cannot be right now have my agency with the help of amazing allies where we have, and we honoring those friends.
Thank you so much. Both of you have worked so hard to, through your organizations and also knowing you personally, working to lift our community where it lives at the boundaries and at the margins, whether people are facing safety issues, financial burdens, emotional need for support,
What do you
or
say?
just human connection. How do you think that we as community leaders ask organizations or people to work with us to do the part that's not always sexy, but to lift up the people at our margins who are trans or non binary people of color? Carter?
Absolutely. how do we ask? We simply ask, letting people know what the needs are, and on the same token, as advocates, we also have to ask our constituents, what are your needs, and then connecting those two things. A prime example of that is within this recent pandemic. Everyone globally was heavily impacted by the COVID virus, and with Black trans people already being heavily in the margins of socioeconomic strain, we pretty much polled our community. What do you need in this pandemic? We could continue our regular programs and go virtual with that, but we know that you're more impacted. What is it that you need? And the community response was that they needed, safety supplies. When the pandemic hit, no one had jobs, or many, even more Black trans people didn't have jobs. They couldn't afford, simply getting masks and hand sanitizer. So with that need, we went to our allies and said, hey, can you help us? We need sanitizer. We need, a mask for our safety. This is an already vulnerable population, with majority of my constituents being at health risk or having immune deficiencies existing. And we're all worried about, this pandemic and how it's going to affect us. We've been financially hit hard. Can you donate so that we can send money to Black trans people and help them, retain whatever housing stability that they have, even though they're now unable to pay their rent, or that they can, use transportation. And with that, people donated, and we were able to send micro grants to individuals to help them with their basic needs. And now we've even progressed into sending food packages to trans people who state that they're in need. And so to date, since the pandemic, we've served over 5,000 trans people, a combination of things from safe supply kits, care packages for PPE, food, as well as basic hygiene. So, again, the ask is just simply asking the people, what is it that you need, and asking our allies, can you help us with these things? And then we do the work. We're simply the middleman that's doing the work. And I think that that's been very progressive for us as an organization, or a part of our success, I should say, is because we are Black trans led and we represent the communities that we serve. So that does give us an edge, or keep us finally in tune with what's going on, or what the issues are that directly impact us and our community. And then to build those strong networks with allies and community-based organizations, that's where we find our resources and, the strength and the power of connections, and being able to not only reach the communities that we're all aiming to serve, but but to also reach the powers that be, so that we can make change, solid change across so many systemic arenas that eventually will move closer to equality for all people.
And Ariana.
Well, I think it's important have the ability to working together, and prove, show our talents, right? One of the bigger needs of the transgender community is data. We are invisible, and we are community invisible, even in the census, or even in the data collection for health. So what we doing in this time is collecting data for our community. So if they don't have a data, we create our own data, and we know what is the needs, because no better than a transgender people know what is the best and what is the need, the real needs for the transgender community. So when this one we doing in South Florida, and this year when the pandemic, we increased that study when this research in Puerto Rico, and the University of Puerto Rico, the School of Public Health asked only for 120 answers. And in this time, we collecting close to 300 answers, and we give, like Carter said, we do the job. We are partner, and we do the job. We did the job, and now we are process the historical need assessment for Puerto Rico, so we can know big idea what is the real need in Puerto Rico. Example, in South Florida, when we are developing for transgender individual, we have a three bigger issues. What is discrimination in employment first, housing, and access to healthcare. That is the 3 points for South Florida for the transgender community. Maybe it's the same in Puerto Rico, maybe it's the other different, but that's those needs, they are really, really real in the transgender community, because everybody have a discrimination in work and work, and also access to healthcare, so that is really, really continue working. And transgender, we find the ways to stay in the people. Like in this pandemic, we initiate online series and live Facebook times, or media, social, every Thursday, every Friday, and every Wednesday. And we talking cases, one program in English and one specific in Spanish, and talking with our needs and resources, and connecting with others. We're doing networking also. So that is working working with any other community. We are a community.
Thank you so much. Ariana mentioned the matter of putting data together and getting it to the doorstep of people who may not receive it. Your work also includes dealing with national organizations that are beyond the trans community. Talk to us about the welcoming, or how your information is received when you're and collecting data to reach it to a doorstep that may not normally get information about trans people.
So, in my experience of getting data to doorsteps that it may not usually reach, it's a tedious process. One, just to get the data or the information, especially when you narrow down the identities, and more specifically, me as a Black trans man, there's very little data and statistics in comparison when we talk about what are the health statistics of Black transgender men versus that of any other identity, etc., along the line of all the disparities that the trans community faces. So that is something that we also work to do, is to collect that data and information and to have it, publicized as much as possible. Um, we are we are at an advantage of getting that information, again, because we are talking to and living directly in those communities that we serve. So when we talk about that, almost 60% of Black trans people are living below the poverty line or making less than $10,000 a year, we're talking about half of my staff and volunteers of this organization. And so when we are able to get that information and couple that with lived experiences and stories, it's amazing the impact that has to actually connect the dots for people who generally just would not get it, or even look to find that information for any reason other than now that you know that this is someone that you're close to, or may know from work, or someone that can be relevant to you. It takes more importance. And so that has been my experience as far as, getting that data collection, and then actually getting it into the hands of people that can create change with it, in alliance with us.
Thank you so much. Ariana, your organization was started because of your great vision, your tremendous courage, and your go-to-itness and stick-to-itness. Florida is clearly America's whirlpool. Because of the recent elections and other scenarios, everyone in the country has been watching the intergenerational aspect that Florida has all generations, the mix of cultures, to where people who want to measure Latinos or Latinx people or Hispanics. Think they want to do one number and don't know that you've got a lot of us who are all different in how we grew up and how we exist, and that not everyone in Florida is Cuban. And so I wanted maybe if you would talk a little bit about, people surmise what they think, what's special about being in Florida. But could you give us a lens from Ariana Lint? What is it like to be in Florida? And what are the things that you encounter that you would love for the country to know about?
Well, I think that people and the country have to know the reality and transgender people living in the South region of the United States, is totally different of the needs of the trans people living in the West, or in Los Angeles or in California. The reality over here, even though we have rights, the gay community and organizations, they are so difficult to see us as a talent or as a person they can bring something for the community. So I think it's important to first of all focus in Florida, because as you see the new election showing Florida have a lot of difficult and understanding our needs, and that is part of everybody. Also, I encourage to the LGBTQ organizations, bigger organizations, as a human right campaign, Transgender Law Center, National Transgender for Equality, have a crucial role in the next years, or to go forward agencies or activists, grassroots as we are, right? We are now in Washington, and maybe sometimes we are not considering at the table or in conversations what is crucial for our community and the needs. So it's so important. Also, as a land legal too, I'm the only transgender, well, I'm part of a few transgender who they are suing HHS, the Human Health Services, for inclusion and discrimination for inclusion transgender individuals to access to healthcare. So that is so important, and I think I just want to say to the people who they are listeners and viewers, give a chance to know us. Know who we are, what talents we are. Maybe we change that vision from a transgender person you think or you building in the whole years. We are people who there want to survive. We are people who, for us, is so dangerous. Just go outside of my door, because we don't know if we can. 34 transgender individual was murdered this year in United States. And for people, they don't understand us. Just not they don't understand us. They hate us. They don't want to see us as alive. So I think it's so important, respect each other, have visibility and have the passion. And as a transgender person, I just want to say, I love to everybody. And I think we have to give the opportunity to have to let people has the mission and the life, and made that mission. And for me, it was so difficult, but I'm in the track to together to have a better quality of life, and better future for the whole transgender community and the whole world.
Thank you so much. Carter, we've just heard Ariana talk about being in South Florida, which, as we say, we know the whole country's been watching. And as she has national resources to tap into, and including, not leaving out even the lawsuit that she's involved in through Lambda in order to sue HHS. At, at your organization, Carter, I've watched you work in every particular part of the country where the needs are a little different and the touch is a little different. Talk to us about how you assess different markets and then how you adjust your approach as you're going in to garner support for Black trans men's lives.
Well, I can attest a lot of my professional experience to that. Previously to working in the nonprofit sector and advocacy, I worked in the real estate industry. Um, and anybody that's been in sales or real estate know that there's a saying that of ABC, which stands for always be closing. And so, that's a mindset that I pretty much adopted in my professional experience. And when you're working in the real estate market, your success largely depends on knowing the market, um, having great charisma or being a people's person, and then also just following up until you close the deal. And so, that is pretty much my mindset. And, it has been my approach to the movement for Black trans people in the community that I serve. Um, I have to what the know my market, or rather know what my people need, know what they want, and how to get it for them. And I have to be a people's person. I have to, being a community based organization, it's so important that you are relatable, um, you know, not only to the people that you serve, but to the people outside of the transgender community. So, again, just being able to relate on multiple levels is something that I learned, or a skill that I acquired while working in real estate. And then again, just following up until the deal is closed, whether that be just providing service to one particular beneficiary or constituent, or if that's following a policy initiative like the Equality Act until you see that it's done to really bring change for the communities that you serve or your quote unquote client. And so
that is just incredible. I want to get to one last question for both of you because I know everybody needs to hear this from you. Let's start with you, Ariana. What was one thing that society said you should not be able to accomplish, but you did? And what was that like for you? And if there's any lesson you want to share for people that you learned from that as they're listening with us today.
When I came into United States, I'm starting a career in the public sector. Right? I working for the state and everything. And also all the time I trying to get a career and get options, be supervisor, have a better position and everything. And everybody, they told me, you are not enough for that position. You're not serious. And I prove right now when I have organization, we serving more of 350 transgender per year. We have operations in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, San Juan, Puerto Rico. We working with different organizations around the nation, around the world. So for me, as a professional, I'm proud who I am. As a transgender, I'm happy who I am. As a person, I am very responsible and have a passion to give the opportunity who they don't have that opportunity in their life. Because those people who they lost opportunities in their life is who they most appreciate the opportunity somebody give. I have my opportunity and I don't miss it out. I have my position, I have my career, and I helping others. And that passion and that advocacy is not just because I am a transgender, it's because I am a human being.
Thank you. And Carter.
I would say the one thing that people said I could not do and that I'm doing is that I couldn't live authentically and happily as a Black transgender man. I do, and I am. Now, after nearly a decade of empowering Black trans people and finding my community, that has definitely enriched my life as well as the lives of others. And I couldn't be happier in my life than I am today.
That's so wonderful. I thank you both so much. And we definitely would like to thank HBO for letting us be part of uplifting trans communities of color. We thank again Ariana Lent, founder and CEO of Ariana Center, and Carter Brown, executive director of Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. This is Diego Sanchez from P Flag National. Thank you very much.